be live. Yes, we are. All right, so hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the 5th episode of Women of Blockchain series. Today we have again an amazing selection of speakers who will be discussing on a really interesting topic, which is collectible in gaming. What do we consider of value in the digital space? Who collects what and why? So before I let them introduce themselves and we hear their thought and insight on the topic, I'd like to give you a quick introduction about the Blockchain Game Alliance, which is hosting this series of events. The Blockchain Game Alliance is a non-profit organization committed to promoting blockchain within the game industry. Our goal is to spread awareness about blockchain technology and encourage adoption through promoting new ways, thanks to blockchain, decentralization, non-fungible tokens, and all the other possibilities offered by this technology. New ways to create, publish, play games, make games, and also engage with players, build communities around games. We're also strong advocates for diversity and more inclusivity of women in the industry. We've run already, this is our 5th event with 100% women lineup of speakers. And we are here to provide an open forum for companies and individuals to network, to share knowledge, to potentially find business partnership, to promote their services, to acquire users, and do much more together, promoting adoption of blockchain in the gaming industry. The core activity of the Alliance are evolved around networking, research, and reporting, representing blockchain game companies and advocating for the use of blockchain within our industry. And we are proud to say that we keep growing every month. It's really exciting. We are now over 150 members with by all sorts of companies, not only blockchain game company, of course, but traditional gaming companies, platform development tools, legal companies, PR, media, event organizations, and many more. So it's really exciting to see all the different people and companies in the space working together. Some of the recent activities, if you don't follow us yet on the social media channels, Twitter, Medium, YouTube, you are missing a lot. You're missing all the different live stream events we're organizing with all those great speakers, all the different topics that we are presenting around decentralized gaming, around DAOs, around DeFi, around offering free ticket and free speaking opportunity to other events in the industry. So I really recommend you to follow us on social media. And that will give you a chance to listen also to some of these amazing women who are actively working in blockchain, gaming, NFTs, and digital art, and that talked previously, presenting their project, presenting what they are doing, and how they are making the space move forward. So this is the 5th episode, but you can watch out in the replay the 4th previous one. And that is all available on our YouTube. Before jumping with our speaker, I just want to give as well a big thank you to our sponsor, Animoca Brands, Ubisoft, Matic, MakerDAO, Algorand, and Maurice Algorand, who joined us last month, and Chromia, who just joined us this month, and IMG. That's it. Thank you very much. You can follow us on Twitter, Medium, apply to join on our website, and of course, chat with us on Telegram and Discord. Thank you very much. And now I'm leaving to Serena, who will be your host today for this amazing discussion with all the speakers. Hi, Serena.
Hi, Sebastian, and thank you so much for the wonderful introduction about the wonderful work of the BGA. Thank you to all the speakers for joining us today. It's wonderful to be here, guys, and I feel so privileged to be talking to you about such a great topic, which is the valuable of collectibles in blockchain games. So I just want to go back to the slides. Here we go, and have a brief look through the agenda for today. So we're going to starting with an introduction about all our speakers today and talk about your projects and your involvement in the NFT, art, and gaming industry. Then we're going to move on to the core of the discussion and looking at what we're going to be talking about, the value of NFTs and how these is found to be in blockchain games. Then we're going to be asking questions to each other and see what do we think and what's the vision we have about this topic. And then we're going to open it up to the public and have a live Q&A with everyone that's been watching the panel. So without further ado, we're going to dive into the conversation. We can get onto the next slide and start the conversation about our speakers and give a quick introduction. Just a few words about myself. I'm the co-founder of MoCDA, and I'm also collaborating with NFT London Meetup as a host. I've been hosting also panels here for the BGA with the Women Series. I curate digital art, and I also have a background by working at Tate Gallery here in London. I think we can then move on to introducing our speakers. I could pass on the word to Olive maybe next, if you want to give us a quick introduction. And I'm just going to get the slide on with your profile. Hi, Olive. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Serena. Thank you. Hi, ladies. Well, my name is Olive Allen. I'm a visual artist and a tech entrepreneur. I've been in this space forever. I mean, I discovered Bitcoin back in 2013, and I've been involved more or less since. In NFT space, I've been since the inception. I witnessed different changes the industry went through. I started as a tech entrepreneur, but then I switched to making art. So now it's my primary focus, working on my own digital art. I mean, call it digital. I call it new media. My own art that I launched my first collection back in October last year. Yeah, I've been making art ever since. So yeah, I'm very passionate about the space and what is going to become of it.
Great, fantastic, thank you. And I know you've been involved in creating assets in the Sandbox game, so I'm eager to learn more about that. Thank you so much. And then we've got Amy that joined us the conversation today. Hi, Amy, thank you for being here.
Hi, Serena. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. So for me, I haven't been in the blockchain environment for too long. I've started learning about the blockchain by a chance encounter. I started working with a Korean company, a Korean startup that created crypto collectibles. In late 2018, and then when I came back to France, I started collaborating with the Sandbox, the Sandbox game company. So for now, I'm the community manager, and I'm also a content writer. So I write articles, and I also manage the ambassador program for the Sandbox community.
Sounds so fascinating. So I definitely want to learn more about all the stories that you write about this wonderful asset within the game. Thank you. And Daniela from DapperLabs. Hi and welcome.
Hi, Serena. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy and excited to be here as well. I am Daniela Diaz. I am project manager for CryptoKitties since the beginning in 2017, and I'm a founding team member of that project. And then I've been working in the space ever since. I've also worked in another experimental project that we have called Cisse, and CryptoKitties allowed us to create the company DapperLabs when we decided to dedicate ourselves to creating the many tools we need in the blockchain ecosystem. Right now, I'm working in CryptoKitties and focusing on how we're going to bring that project to Flow blockchain, which is another one of our projects within DapperLabs. And yeah, the CryptoKitties was my first contact with the crypto world back then when we started in 2017. But that project was very interesting because together with it, we created the ERC 721 standard that allowed us to trade NFTs in the Ethereum network. So it's been a pretty exciting ride, and I'm happy to be here sharing about crypto collectibles with you today.
Fantastic, thank you. I think it's such an interesting story that, you know, really made history. So it will be wonderful to carry on the conversation on that topic. And then we welcome Jessica Angel with the to the panel today. Hi, Jessica. Welcome.
Serena, thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. Okay, so
do you want to share a few words about yourself and your project? Because I know you're so active in the community, and I definitely want to share that story with everyone else.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot to share. So I'm a visual artist, mostly doing installation art. My work takes over walls and ceilings and floors, and I'm creating these immersive environments that are inspired by the world of information. Kind of if you could just like dive into what would be happening inside a computer and create these kind of chimerical landscapes. So with this work that I do in installation, I got in touch with a blockchain project called TrueBit back in 2017. And they invited me to create an installation piece that would speak about the connection between two blockchains, because they thought the work was so related to blockchain. I knew a little bit about blockchain, but I wasn't really that into it. But once I jumped into the space, I just haven't been able to leave, because there's so much happening, so many interesting people, and so much to do. So because of this one project, I started a Telegram channel in late 2017 to try and identify who was interested in the connection between art and blockchain, because these installations that I do sort of serve as a space for interactions to happen, inviting other people to take over, to activate the space, panel discussions, video projections over, and so on. So this Telegram channel has been sort of the platform for me to connect with all the people in this space. So I invite you to join. It's you just go #ArtProject or go to the website artproject.io. And since, I've been connecting with amazing artists, people who are building platforms. This group has been remarkable for me to understand the technology in the first place, like asking questions. It's been a place for artists who don't know so much about blockchain to come in and ask how it works, how they can get involved. So yes, I've been basically focused on the community aspect of art and blockchain, and creating connections between people, and making maker spaces, for example, with ETH the Ethereal Summit. I've been sort of guiding programmers and artists to create like hardware workshops, and allowing for also people to connect between themselves. So we're still working on that.
Super. I think it's such a great element to have within the community, sharing those informations and the education around NFTs and the whole ecosystem. So thank you so much for doing that since so long. So it's a great achievement. Well done, Jessica.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's dive straight into the core of our conversation. So today we're going to be discussing what's the value of a collectible. So there's some aspects that we know, for example, such as rarity, scarcity, and those elements that have been playing a role within evaluating the asset within crypto games. But there's plenty more, I think, to be considered. And I think as we move on to 2020, there are elements that we should take into consideration. So as we move on with the slides, I wanted to point out a few elements that have been described back in 2018 by, actually, that was defined by Jeff of Axie Infinity. And he said in an article that the value of a collectible has to be considered by defining three elements, which are scarcity, aesthetic, and utility. So by having those three elements in mind, I wanted just to share these with you and ask you, what do you think, if those elements are still very much meaningful to how we assess and value a crypto collectible or not? So what do we mean by that? Scarcity is how rare the asset is. Aesthetic is how aesthetically compelling the crypto asset could be, and the utility. So what we mean by that is the kind of power, intrinsic power that the asset retains. So I would like to sort of put these questions out there to you, and maybe we can start with Olive, and then we can mention about the Sandbox game and get Amy also to talk about that. So do you guys think those three elements still play a big role on evaluating an asset?
Yes, absolutely, but they are not the only ones. I mean, scarcity is, it's a very nominal thing. I mean, every item is scarce. If artist makes one piece, it's scarce. It doesn't mean it's valuable. That's the argument. I feel like all the elements should come in place. It has to be scarce. It has to be produced someone has that people trust in. It has to be compelling. It has to be all of the things, and has to be in fashion, so to say. I mean, like in the art world, certain artists or styles become fashionable, and everybody starts buying them. Like, look at Claus. I mean, people hating on Claus, but like, hey, everybody's buying. He's doing quite well. So, but before, he's been doing those companions for a long, long time. He started as a street artist and just putting them on the streets of New York, and then it caught on, became fashionable, and people started paying a lot of money. So was it scarce? Was not really. I wouldn't say so. He can produce as many as he wants in his studio. I can make as many bears, as many collectibles as I want. So scarcity is, I'm not sold on that one.
So you're saying that
Yep,
that fashionable, it should be one of the elements to be considered.
Of course, absolutely. Like, look, there are many talented artists out there, but we don't even hear about them because certain people didn't decide, certain art dealers. I'm not talking about the crypto space, even the crypto space, to be honest. Like Super Rare or Nitty Gataway didn't contact them and didn't put their art out there, and like, hey, nobody heard of them. But they're producing great art. So, and the thing is, a lot of people cannot really tell what's good and what's not. So if you see something enough, you kind of makes you believe it's probably decent, and you don't understand something about something. It's very strange how a conscious mind works and evaluates things.
And Amy, about the utility, I know that within Sandbox, characters have some attributes, and those play a role within how the asset is valued. How is that perceived by the community?
So to me, we'll have different assets, will have different utilities. So one avatar could be just an avatar that you need for the game. So you will need to have an avatar to play a game. So that will have high value because without the avatar you can play. But then you have different assets that will have different utilities depending on the game you want to play. So you can have an asset that can be playable in different games, and then that will have more value because it has interoperability. Then you'll have assets that will be more powerful or more desirable because of their aesthetic. But you wouldn't let's say you'd have this asset that is desirable, that is pretty sorry, I lost my word, that is pretty powerful. So this asset will be in a lesser amount, but that will create more want, more desire for the community to purchase that particular asset. So depending on the view, because like we have the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, utility is in the eye of the beholder. So if I'm a player, I want to play in different games, I'd want to have an asset that can be that can be used in different games. And then if you have assets that can be played in one game, but is super powerful, this asset will have also a different utility, but it's a greater utility to that player. So I think different assets have different utilities, but they are all important utilities in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And what's the impression, if we're talking about the audience, and since your role is like as a community manager, I think it is important to think about what the audience perception is like. So you said that those attributes could have different values depending on the interoperability on the games, which I totally agree, and I think that's actually one of the topics we'll be discussing in a few moments. But what is your impression about how do people evaluate the assets within the game? Like, what's the impression that you get from conversations, social media, or what's the kind of sense that you think is sort of driving the interest on those assets?
The interest in different assets would be, I think it lies within the aesthetic of that asset. It can also lie on the scarcity of that asset. Like, we have common assets that will be sold on our marketplace to a variety of people. So that will be in huge demand. And then we'll have lesser ones. So I think the community will, the community will see different assets and will ask for these assets in particular, depending on the themes and the themes of the games that you want to build, or the type of game you want to build. So different assets will have different utilities in that sense.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point. And somebody also here just shared, Richard, and hi, and thank you for watching. Just saying, I think an important part that's missing from value is the personal connection. How does an NFT connect with the player user? Which I think is such an interesting aspect. And I would like to get these on to Daniela, as I know CryptoKitties as, for example, also a great use case in terms of the way it relates to the person that owns the kitty. And all the breeding and what you own, it becomes your little pet. So how does that work within the CryptoKitty environment?
Yeah, so I think that's a very interesting perspective, and it's something that players develop as they get exposed to a game, and it's something that starts with, for us in CryptoKitties, with why we exist as a game and how we wanted to be a connection to a lot of people to the blockchain, and for the first time own something in this new platform that everyone was so excited about, but also making these assets that in this case are kitties be very personable and unique. And so each kitty has their own little biography that is also procedurally generated, like the art of the most of the kitties. And that makes them, those are the little things that makes you love your CryptoKitty over the other ones, because that unique bio is only yours, and it is what you start developing a connection with. And also when we create special edition cats or fancy cats that have unique artwork for them, we try to create stories for them, and we launch them in sense of like they have families, they are serious on a given topic. Right now we're releasing the band cats, and they're all like rocker cats, and that's how people develop more personable connections, by giving them personality as well to the assets.
Mm-hmm, for sure. So what we see here on this slide is, on Nifty Getaway, how this has been going, and the cat that we see here, I don't know if you want to tell us a few words about it, but I know it's got an interesting story. And also I'm curious to know if cat attributes can actually be considered a new metric to evaluate assets.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, that's an awesome collaboration that we did with Animoca Brands and this artist called Momo One. This is our first kitty that is created in collaboration with a renowned artist, and given that we saw this amazing new movement in the crypto art world and NFTs, and we wanted to create special editions of cats in collaboration with this artist. This kitty we made, so in this kitty you see all these aspects that we were talking about, the scarcity. There were only 100 of these kitties, the one that we're showing right now, Katerina. It's aesthetically very different from all the other kitties because they have the style of Momo one. And in terms of utility, well, fancy cats can also reproduce. They can also have offsprings. Well, this is an exclusive, sorry. But yeah, this kitty sold out in 3 minutes. Also, like, I think that's very interesting. Also, like, bringing new distribution methods like Nifty Gateway that brings so many people that are new to the crypto world and finds that junction. So in that sense, yeah, like, and for the other question regarding cat tributes, it depends on the type of cats, but yeah, like especially like the procedurally generated cats, their traits are super valuable because they unlock other more rare cat tributes that are like along the pyramid of genes. So it's like many things in the world of collectibles. The more you know about it, the better you're able to assess the value of them, and that is like part of like this very interesting world that we have. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it feels in a way from what you're saying that knowing more about the project, it also allows you to make better decisions on how you would like to invest. But there's also the element about how we feel connected to the assets. You know, what Olive was saying, that we somehow connect with it because we like the aesthetic or we like the story, and somehow we feel that connection, that bond. So I'm curious to know from Jessica, since you talk to many artists and you're very active within the community, what are, in your opinion, the reasons why people are so interested in collectibles, and what are the motivations? You know, you've been talking to many artists, you're an artist yourself. So what's your sense of the parameters about investing within, for example, a CryptoKitty? So if we're thinking like attributes come from the fact that we know more about the kitty, the story, and we're knowledgeable about the project, what if we are connecting with an asset mainly because we connect on an emotional level?
Yeah, so going back to those three sort of features for collecting, what gives value to collectibles, you said scarcity, it's aesthetic, and it's utility. Between the art and the gaming space, in blockchain, there is a little bit of an overlap, but there are certain differences. So I can only speak about from sort of the art collecting perspective. Let's say, for example, utility. Amy was talking about the utility of these NFTs. Obviously, in gaming, utility is important. But in the art side, utility is, I believe, the least important thing. There's certainly maybe no utility to it. But then when you talk about where to drive the value, I was just making a note here that the context of the NFT is, in my opinion, what gives it the most value. Why? Because what is the context? The context is, who is the artist? What is the artist's career? What are the subject matters that the artist is addressing? Scarcity is certainly important. How many copies of the image there are? So on that side, between that sort of overlap, I think aesthetics would be kind of in the middle point, and then usability or usage has nothing to do with the art side. But you were also asking why people collect, is that right? And I think collecting has a very sort of satisfying aspect to it. In terms of art, just an image and a JPEG or a GIF, for example, this is the hard question that most people sort of ask, is like, what is the difference between owning it, if I can have it in my phone that I just took a screenshot of, or like actually owning it? And just, I think it's mostly psychological. You are the owner, but everybody can enjoy it. There's an attachment to that. And I think you mentioned something like an emotional attachment to it. I think that emotional attachment And for example, building a collection is also part of that sort of development of kind of making a statement. There is a collection that I like, it's called The Virgin of Crypto, or La Virgen del Crypto in Spanish. And it's just a collection of art pieces, NFTs, that are related to Virgin Mary, kind of from this perspective of Latin American views of the Virgin. And so collecting becomes kind of a statement, kind of a way of creating a narrative as well. And I think that's very interesting from the art side. Another thing that I've noticed is that artists themselves are becoming collectors too, and they're sort of pushing the space forward and buying the artwork from fellow artists. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you described is exactly the behavior that we would expect from majority of people. So I think there's a small percentage of people, in my opinion, from what I've been witnessing, that it is mindful about collecting as a form of investment, whether most of the audience is actually connecting with what they see, with what they feel, with what they experience. So, talking about those attributes that we briefly described with Amy within the Sandbox game, I would like to sort of share the question and discuss, openly with you on what do we believe that attributes are, and which attributes determine the value of a collectible. Like if we are looking at these character, for example, which is, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is one of the rare, it's a pirate one from the Sandbox game, and it's quite rare within the game. What would you feel by looking at this character are the attributes that would determine its value? And Amy, maybe you can talk us through those characters within the game.
Oh, to me? Each avatar will have different attributes because we have the gems and catalysts. So you can add more value to your asset through these tokens. So you choose whether your character will have more power, more defense, will be more you have more speed, more magic, or just luck. So every single of these pirates will have these attributes, and these gems and catalysts will be chosen by the artist. So each artist will decide whether I want my character to be more strong, I want my character to be more powerful in terms of magic. So I will determine this, and then I will put it to the marketplace, and then either the game creators will decide, well, I want that type of avatar to be usable in my land, in my game experience, or I can decide like I want this one just to be to be a guide to my pirate themed land, or I just want to be displaying it as in an art collection, like see all the avatars that I have in my land. So different, again, different users will have different value, will put a different type of value to this avatar. But I think that the most important thing is the vision of the artist first. The artist will put his vision, his aesthetics, his story to the character, and then you will decide as the user, as the player, what value you want to put to that avatar.
So it feels like it is a mix of you as the owner and somebody that wants to have a role within that, and the character that's been created either by you or by the artist, and that you enter in that communication with it.
Exactly.
I think I'll be interested to hear from Olive and to sort of share the the question with you guys and hear your thoughts about what are your experiences, for example, working as artists within the arts and gaming space, and how would you feel you as an artist would influence the creation of those characters, and what kind of influence that play on the audience, for example, collecting those avatars and then making them becoming collectibles.
Right, thank you. I think there are two different worlds, gaming and art. Context is a very important word. Context is very, very different versus players do care about game mechanics. They want aesthetically pleasing, rare, unique character or avatar or whatnot, or asset. And they also want it to do something useful, to have some superpowers. So I'm always mindful of that when I'm creating my rare assets. I always keep in mind, what could it possibly do that could be useful for the players? So in terms of art, yeah, that's not a thing. I mean, utility is not a main category. I don't even think about that. And there is like more freedom in terms of doing whatever I like. I mean, I'm an artist. I'm ultimately deciding what it's all about. If I want to be, I mean, I don't even want it to be useful. That's not the point. That's not the point of art.
And Jessica and Daniela, what do you guys think about that?
I was gonna say, I see a trend within these art minting platforms of this kind of usability that is starting to happen. There's a project called Async that allows you to program your NFT and give them certain attributes. The owner of the NFT will be able to change the color or add a certain motion to it. So there's like a new level of interactivity that is starting to surface in the arts that may have not been sort of out there before with traditional art forms. So I think that's really interesting. Also with the potential of having 3D NFTs like what Super Rare recently released, that will allow you to own sort of a sculpture that you can see using AR in different places. Like you can see it with your phone kind of moving on your countertop in your kitchen if you wanted. So there's little things that are starting to happen in the art blockchain world that have that usability aspect and that have a little bit more of an interactive sort of engagement with the owner. And I'm excited to see what that leads to.
Yeah,
That's
totally. Async. Oh, sorry, Serena, go ahead.
No, you go for it, Daniela. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that the Async project also came to mind. Even if we think of art only has the utility of like displaying itself, that's also something that some platforms are doing. Like, I don't remember the name of this project, but you purchase the crypto art and you have an app that makes it easy for you to display it on your giant TV. So that is a kind of utility, and just like the same with Async, it's really, really fun, and you feel really, really powerful. I believe I'm not an art collector myself, but we've been collaborating with them for a fundraising in a project, and to be able to coordinate, it makes our social. Different people can own different parts of a piece, and they can coordinate among each other to make it look a certain way, and send a certain message. And we have a lot of political art in the blockchain, so it's it's like the technology aspect that is intertwining with art there is opening up more possibilities in the terms of utility.
Mm-hmm. Totally. There's an interesting question coming from the audience. There's Marcus asking this one: would the speakers consider that beyond rarity, aesthetic, and utility, that the enabling of decentralized trading adds at least an equal value to the digital asset? And I think that's an interesting one, considering the CryptoKitty project and Sandbox. What are your thoughts on that, Daniela?
Yeah, I think that is totally that, like, the tradability of it is another aspect, and that's why the market is the ultimate deterministic source of value for and like that's why we as CryptoKitties don't put prices on our cats. Is that it's the market who does, and when we were selling the series, it was the market price that determined the market price of the upcoming genes. And that's very interesting when we think of this, because it turns players into stakeholders of our games, because they own a piece of it and they're interested in it progressing and doing better. And that's when we see some really interesting statistics that have been coming out of the revenue made by games like ours, and how much of that revenue has been distributed to the players. In our case, is way more than the revenue that the company has made. So the players are creating this content through our platform, but are also benefiting from the value of it. So I think that's really powerful, and that's something that the traditional gaming industry is really looking for as well, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
completely agree with this. To me, I'll just transpose that to the lens that we have. So that's the parcel of land that you need to build your gaming experience on top of. So these are bought by our users, and then they're called landowners. So like in real life real estate, you can decide to keep that land, you can decide to sell that land, you can decide to rent that land to a game maker, a creator that might not want to purchase the land, but just want to put their game experience on top of and generate revenue that way. So to each individual, you have a different vision for your land. So either you want to be the one to create all the game experience from scratch, create your assets, create your game experience, put that on top of your land, and then decide either you want to monetize the game experience and you want to do a free to play game, you want to rent that to other gamers, you want to keep that and wait until it gains more value, the game has momentum, and then resell it. So with that land, you will have a different aspect of value that it wouldn't be possible without the decentralized trading aspect of it all. So that's an added bonus to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but I
That's
think
definitely...
I mean, there are so many classes in decentralized trading, but there are also so many drawbacks actually. If you think about that, your value is not protected in any way. If somebody like learn the economics 101 and they're selling your assets for cheap,
Yeah,
I don't know why. So it crashes the whole value, and it's like not controlled at all. You can like spiral down overnight, pretty much. So it's just a wild west. It's more gamble, like more chances. Make a lot, you can lose a lot on single asset, and it's just wild. I think that's to be mindful of. Really, there is no centralized authority in protect your value, like traditional art world, for example. I mean, they are protecting the value of the asset single-handedly, pretty much. Here, yeah, count your blessings.
That's definitely an interesting one. And Jessica, what do you think about this? There's also another comment that came through from the audience, which is about, I'll show you now. Sorry, this one. Okay, so what type of AAA game for console, PC do you think would benefit the most from NFTs? First-person shooters, boat racing, MMO, RPG, etc. Which I think, in a way, we were talking about with Daniela, the water gaming industry, and how those companies, are looking at, for example, maybe the smaller blockchain game industry, but what are the learnings from it, for example, about introducing NFTs in those kind of like corporate games companies?
Is that question for me or Daniela?
For you and Daniela, I think it will be an interesting way of touching on this from an artist point of view, but also from from, for example, DapperLabs?
Yeah, I think, Daniela, I'll let you take this one because I don't even understand what those acronyms are. I'm not in the gaming industry here. Sorry, guys.
Sounds good. Daniela,
good.
what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I feel that most of the game genres could benefit from it, but it seems to be more obvious or more needed, and like you hear it a lot in the players themselves, like in the MMO in the MMO part of the gaming industry, in games in which like your assets are highly visual and you are investing a lot of money in that avatar, but then you cannot ever resell it. You can only, like Fortnite. Yeah, Fortnite is making a lot of revenue on those avatars because players in this metaverse that they've created, sort of like Sandbox is also pointing towards, everyone sees you in your avatar. They are the virtual representation of you. It's like your outfit, and you're gonna invest a lot of money on it. But then players don't really own that asset, and owning that asset and bringing it to the blockchain it has a lot of technical challenges as well. That is like all those challenges that we are trying to solve in the industry. But the benefit for the user that now know that they're a real owner of that asset and that they can do whatever they want with it. And we as a company cannot prevent anyone from selling their land, their CryptoKitty. That is really powerful to people who invest a lot of time, effort, and money into the games that they play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand. Thank you for sharing your vision on that. So there's something we wanted to address to you guys. So if we're talking about like popularity, power, and status, do you believe that status drives value over scarcity? Since we've been having this kind of conversation, so would you think that
Absolutely.
status would be? Yeah, and
Yeah.
Jessica, what are your thoughts on that? In terms of like, do you think that the status would drive the value over scarcity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. This conversation and this overlap between art and gaming, it's making me think of projects like Crypto Voxels, Decentralized, like the whole idea of the metaverse, that there's certainly a big overlap there, where, for example, wearables, artists are wearing avatars that are made by artists as well. So yeah, I think just, the part of the active engagement, part of using all these different tools that are put out there is certainly what is driving value to these platforms. I think in Crypto Voxels, in its early developments, I don't think they had a direct intention to bring artists to the space. I believe if it wasn't for artists taking over the space, the project probably wouldn't be where it is right now. So it's certainly important to have that active engagement. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And what we're looking at here is one of Jessica's project, which is within a physical space, and that's something I wanted to mention, that knowing our collectors and thinking, these are a couple of sentences I've taken from articles I've sort of came across to, and don't collectors want something physical they can hold? This is normally something that we have as a form of attachment to the physicality of the object. So we've seen a shift towards getting closer to digital assets. But how do we feel about that? So Jessica, what's your experience, as a visual artist and creator, and Olive as well? How do you feel that collaboration between something that it is physical, but it can also live within a virtual environment? Mm-hmm. How do you perceive that you as artists, and what do you feel like the perception of the people entering your work?
Mm-hmm. So directly to that point, between the difference between physical and virtual, and owning something physical versus owning something virtual, certainly without blockchain, I think the equation would be totally different. if you wouldn't have that potential for scarcity in digital assets, if you didn't have that, what it is now, let's say like proof of work, like there's like something backing up that transactions, whether it is mathematics or electricity itself, there is a little bit of that sort of rooting into the physical that allows for that virtual asset to be, you know, and I find that super interesting. And I think that blockchain is, for the first time, it has the possibility for something digital to be almost as rooted to the physical as the physical. So yeah, I certainly see a great sort of development happening when it comes to that. In my artwork, for example, I'm interested in portraying the virtual space in a physical way, because conceptually and say philosophically, I don't see that there's a big difference between them, even though we think that they're opposites. So if you say, for example, hard edge space, there's this table, I can touch it, it makes a sound. It's hard edge, but then there's a dynamic space that sort of inhabits the table. I'm sitting on it. The hard edge space of the computer, there's a dynamic space that sort of gives it purpose. And so the dynamic and physical spaces are kind of intertwined in this, you know, relationship, almost like yin-yang-ish relationship. The computer was a concept before it was a computer. It wasn't a drawing. It was probably a 3D rendering. And so one is not before the other. They kind of work together. So I think if we sort of move forward this understanding of this physical and virtual opposites to be more of a wholesome unity, then I think, you know, the advent of like blockchain assets can like even go further and faster.
Mm-hmm. Olive,
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree at any point. Absolutely. The virtual is real. I don't think it matters how the work is presented or created, as long as the intent is there. But I understand why people are so hesitant about digital art, why they don't necessarily see the value right away. Because people have those concerns that they might lose the digital file. I don't know. People might copy it very easily. You know, it still doesn't sound legitimate to you as a collector. I mean, since like there have been centuries of proven data that paintings or sculptures, the best thing, you know, you get the physical object, you put it in the storage, and great. And like wait patiently when it appreciates in value. Well, digital space is just so new. People don't have, there is no frameworks around that. That's one of the challenges. What is blockchain trying to solve actually? I think major thing is to ease those concerns about the file storage. What NFTs that, I mean, essentially is the way to record the metadata and store it securely on chain, so it's immutable. I mean, it's not magic in any way. It just solves that main concerns of the collectors. And it doesn't matter if it can be copied or not. I mean, come on, you can copy Mona Lisa. You can go take a photo and print it out, put it in your bedroom. Doesn't mean you own it. Hey. Mm-hmm. That's like old. I mean, such an old argument.
Mm-hmm. That's something I wanted to share with you guys. Is about the first street art fresco that was tokenized back in 2019, because it's, I think, a great example of how actually blockchain and tokenizing physical works can actually be meaningful in the digital space. So, for example, in this case, this fresco doesn't exist anymore. So the only way that you can find it is on those 3 different panels that have been tokenized and put on the blockchain. So that, for example, could be one of the reasons why creating a digital physicality to something that actually can decay in the physical world could make sense. But that's something like from an historical point of view that I wanted to share and point out. But as we... and I don't know if you, Jessica, can relate to this kind of, event in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And with my installation work, I'm really interested in finding the ways to make that bridge between tokenizing something that will eventually disappear, because these installations are up for 6 months, 3 months, 1 month. And then I'm sort of thinking about Sol LeWitt, the artist who makes these large murals. what he sells is actually, or what the gallery sells is a package of instructions, and the collector just buys the instructions and hires a team to set it up. So there's this it's almost like a conceptual legitimate, like the blockchain can like legitimize the conceptual background behind the artwork. It's like that sort of proof that the artwork exists in this form, that is a concept. And then I was also thinking, for example, this work was washed out, but it was also sold. That was my question, because that connection to the physical is interesting. There was this CryptoKitty, Daniela, you may know, that sold for 100 and something thousand at the Ethereal Summit, and people keep talking about it, like, oh, this CryptoKitty sold for this long. But what people don't mention is that that kitty had a hardware piece attached to it, like a sort of like a little house where it lived. So it is still difficult for us to make that detachment. Like, I think it went for that price because it did have that little component that was a little hardware piece, Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's an interesting way. And yes, Daniela, what's the story of that specific kitty?
Yeah, that kitty is called Celestial Cyber Dimension, and it's a special kitty that comes. You purchase it with the physical wallet that also holds the kitty itself, and yeah, it's the kind of thing like I think it goes to that point, Jessica, as you were saying, that these worlds are not contradictory or opposite, but they can the digital and the physical world can fit into each other and empower each other. And I think about what you say about crypto voxels as well, it being not what it is right now without the artists and the users. Nowadays, in the times of the pandemic, one of the really cool art shows that you can go to is in crypto voxels. People exhibit. I just saw someone who put together a wall of all their Pride art, that crypto art, Pride art that they have, and they put it up for as their celebration for Pride Day. And that is very powerful. We are this weekend we're collaborating with, I think, and a whole other bunch of like 40 artists from the crypto world to save real life kitties through a fundraiser, selling digital art in the citadel of crypto voxels. And that is like the kind of things that this world enables in this fluid connection between the digital and the physical world.
That's a wonderful project to actually, support activities within our physical communities, but in the digital world. I think is so profound in a way. As we are sort of concluding this conversation, there's something that I wanted to address to all of you and asking you if you feel that interoperability is actually going to be considered the real value, the real game changer in assessing crypto collectibles, specifically within the blockchain game environment. So I know that we spoke about this with Amy briefly during the first part of this conversation, but do we really feel that interoperability is going to be added as the real value, the real game changer in this year?
And I think it's more of an added bonus, more so. I mean, it's good to see your characters come alive in different environments, especially metaverses. That's what I'm really excited about. You can see one of my characters here on the right-hand side there that's coming out of the computer. So it will happen, to be honest. I'm voxelizing, I don't know if it's that word. Voxelizing, so it will live in both Sandbox universe and real space, I guess. I mean, I think it's actually very cool, to be honest. It's like immortalizing them in a way. I mean, I never thought about it as an added bonus or whatever before, but I quite enjoy it. I've seen CryptoKitties in the digital, in metaverses. It's also kind of cute. Hey, this little thing running around. And you're like, oh, there is something to it, to be honest. Love
it. What do you guys feel about that? Would you think interoperability would become a value for itself that can really assess the overall value of an asset within games? And Daniela.
Yeah, I think that interoperability is something we're also excited about, and the possibilities of it, or the potential, is so big. I feel that, like, the challenge right now is that the technology still makes it very difficult for every project to support uh, interoperability with any other in their assets. So because the standards are not still robust enough for us to make it seamlessly. So I feel that if the technology, if we manage to advance the technology in a way that it's very easy for projects to support interoperability of their assets among each other, which is something that we don't have in spite of the standards that we have nowadays that are a bit more modern, it's still going to be a lot of work. Every time we do a single, we've been able to do single projects of interoperability with other platforms, and it's still an investment, a high investment on engineering time, in testing, to see if everything works out for us to be able to bring capabilities of the CryptoKitties into another game. But if the technology is there, if we manage to make amazing leaps, I'm sure this will be a huge draw for people to join the crypto gaming world.
For sure. I think it's definitely one of the game changer that we're going to be seeing within this year and the upcoming years. Amy, what are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree with what was said previously by Olive and Daniela, sorry. I believe that when you have a character, an asset, an item, whatever you want, that can be used not only on one platform, on a different game, you can take that asset and put it like pretty much everywhere. Like that would be a true game changer, in my opinion, because sometimes, well, for gamers, for players, having one character, one item that you truly you worked hard to get it, you put like time and effort into like creating it for yourself, for example, or just purchasing this because you loved it so much, having it be able to operate in different environments would be completely rewarding for that player, and truly enjoyable to see different types of characters in different types of games. So it could be like a cute bunny adventure, and then you have that bunny into a MMO or RPG, for instance. Could you imagine that? That would be completely crazy. But I think having those characters that people attach importance to, they work with them, they like you said earlier, it's like another part of you into the game, having that character that represents you within the game, having that particular character that you built yourself or that you purchased, whatever, having that particular character being able to operate in different environments, that would be completely crazy. And I think that would be one of the motivations to have better understanding, better and bigger onboarding of users within the blockchain.
Definitely. What we see here is a number of, let's say, motivations that I've gathered together by talking to people about the reasons why they collect crypto assets within blockchain games and within the art world. And I just wanted for you maybe to point out a couple of them and tell us which ones do you think are to you the most valuable, or which one do you feel you would go by in terms of defining the value of an asset. We have social status, reward, recognition, support the artist, investment, be part of a history, status, take part in a community, socializing, immutability, social influence, fame, support the project, prestige, and power.
I can start.
Yes, of course.
I like immutability, certainly. I think that's one of the reasons why I have such interest in the space. I like the one that says "be part of history" because it really is a breaking point in the history of information, I guess. And then I think taking part in the community is an important one. And I say it from my perspective working with the community, but also from my perspective as an artist. There's a big artist community here in Brooklyn, and you go to a gallery or you kind of like interact with artists, and there's never the sort of sense of community that you find in blockchain. That's one of the reasons why I have been so driven to stay in the community and continue working around it, because it's so strong, it's so giving, it's so open. I really have enjoyed being part of this community in a way that I never did, let's say, in the community of art, traditional art. So yeah, those are my three.
Cool. Thank you so much, Jessica. And Daniela, which ones would you pick?
They're also great. I feel a lot of people come to the world of blockchain because of the financial part, and investment is kind of their initial draw to it. But definitely, I agree with Jessica that the community is so strong, and finding like-minded people who are curious about tech and art and this intersection that blockchain kind of creates, it's very powerful, and it's what ends up making people stay. They may come for the financial gain, but it at the end of the day, getting to know other people doing interesting stuff in the space is like what kind of I think makes people stick around more.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Olive, what's your top three?
Yes, I think all of this motivations are valid. Great job. I mean, you summed it up perfectly. But I think a real reason why you as a collector should collect art is because you love it. Honestly, that's the only one reason. Forget about all these motivations on the screen. If you don't love the art, you're not gonna feel good about it. Maybe if it goes up in value, but like, hey, Apple stock goes up in value, Netflix stock, hey, same thing. I think number one thing, you should really love the art, it should speak to you, and then there is no FOMO. You'll be happy with your purchase regardless, That's the point of art, I don't know, to speak to individuals, to actually make your life a tiny bit better. I think it's very powerful. That's where the power of art lies. And of course, like the important thing, don't sell your art for below the market price. Don't crash it for the artist. That's an important thing to remember if you're a collector. Hey, don't crash the price.
True story, yes. And that goes well with the little sentence I've captured by somebody from an article I was reading. We buy this stuff because we love the artists. Seeing and sharing our collections makes us happy. Which I think is ultimately what you were saying, Olive, that there needs to be a connection there, that it is based on what we like and what we love. And Amy, if you were going to select like your top three motivations, which ones would they be?
I'd say to begin with, it would be investments, just like Daniela said. That would be the initial draw to a project, like the way you can monetize it, the way you can generate revenue from it. And then I'd say support the project as well, because you believe in the project. That's what will make you stay. That's what will make you invest more. Be more connected to the project. So supporting the project because you believe in its potential, you believe in what could be created within this universe that is created by the game developer. So supporting the project. And finally, I think I'd stay with take part in a community too, because generally with these blockchain games, you have a close-knit community with a lot of people that share the same vision as you, that share the same vision as you, and have the same expectations and have the same motivations to stay within that community. So you can share what you expect with it. You can, like, as we are a user generated content platform, you want to like have people that think like you and create different games together, or like share your advancements, your doubts, what you are building, and have feedback from the community. So I think as a community manager, I can see that pretty good. The fact that the community help each other without even us having to help them all of the time. They can group within our social channels and discuss within themselves and help each other. That's a truly beautiful thing that I see in our different social medias. So I think, taking part of the community is a strong motivators to stay within a specific project.
Absolutely, yes. Community, in this sense, it is really everything, and that sort of captured the essence of what we discussed during this hour. I just want to announce the next series of events that we're going to be having. So the next one is going to be around investing in blockchain gaming. Why now, and what are the challenges? And that's going to be next Thursday, 16th of July at 5 p.m. European time, and that is again promoted by the BGA, and we're going to have another great number of women speakers talking about those challenges and the reasons why we're investing in blockchain games. I want to thank you all one by one for taking the time being here today. It's been really great to get to know your projects. And I want to remind everyone that here are the contacts, so you can reach out to us if you'd like to learn more about the value of NFTs and discuss. We can take on the conversation. And I will very much invite you all to check out Jessica's project, because there's a lot of conversations going on there every day. So check out ArtProject's Decentralized. And thank you all for joining us today. It's been wonderful to be here with you.
Thank you for your
Thank you all. That was great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you to Sebastian and to the BGA for putting this series of panels together. It is great to have, to promote women in the space. So thank you so much, Sebastian, for supporting this space.
My pleasure. Thank you again, and speak soon on the next one. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you for joining.